Hi, everybody. As you mentioned, my name is Meredith, and I am from Canva. You might be asking yourself, why is Canva at a developers event? And I'm here to tell you a little bit about our developer offering within Canva and how you can bring your AI app to Canva's, I forget what the number is. I think it's 170 million users nowadays, and ever growing number. So it's a really great opportunity to get that reach in a really crowded market as you are developing your AI models and training them. Now, I am not a designer. So I want to add the caveat that this is a UI UX presentation from a non-designer's point of view. So I'm going to take a lot of the tips and tricks that Canva has learned through multiple app reviews, a very long history of designing a great UI product, and how we help you apply that to your AI app to get better user engagement, easier adoption of your application, and help grow your user base even more. So I want to talk you through some of the tips that we have from our experience. We're going to then try to live fix an app's UI using the Canva Apps SDK and App UI Kit. And then I'll show you some more tools that we have to help you if you're interested in bringing your AI to Canva's users. So here are some things we've learned from reviewing tons and tons of AI apps. The first tip I want to look at is looking at this UI. Does anyone see anything that is glaringly not great about it? It's not horrible, but... So one of the things to consider when we're building our application is what are the boundaries of where my UI is going to live? So with Canva, our apps live inside of our side panel. So it is a very narrow but long space. So when you're thinking about actually creating user input space for your application, you need to think about that. So let's think about the vertical layout of our application. By utilizing the vertical space a lot more efficiently and creating more selection opportunities, we're actually able to add more inputs for users that normally would have to be included in their prompt in terms of asking them to get a better result from the AI. Just think about how you can add some prompt engineering to your UI of your application so that instead of having to depend on user input to actually get the best result from your AI, you're actually able to control that by providing them some pre-selected options by better utilizing the layout of this space to actually put those art styles available for the user to select. Another thing we want to think about is, again, anything glaringly wrong here? Yes, there's a massive waste of space here. The actual primary action is at the very bottom of the screen. And I don't know how many, if you have a MacBook and your stupid little thing pops up and you're trying to click at the bottom of the screen and you can't get to it, it's a really painful user experience. So think about how you're, again, using that vertical layout. How are you using your vertical space? Also, the primary action that you want a user to do is to generate an image with your AI, not figure out how many tokens they have left with you. So think again about how you're laying out that vertical space, or depending on where your app lives, how you're laying out your space to be able to best get the users to interact and actually utilize your technology. And a lot of these tips are just kind of focusing based off of Canva's experience, but I think a lot of them do apply no matter how you integrate your AI, if you're building it into another tool or building your own standalone UI as well. Another tip I want to talk about is loading screens. Anyone remember those lovely loading screens from Windows 95 where it would zoom all the way up to 95% and then you would just sit there for another 5 minutes? That last 5% always took the longest for some reason. So when we think about loading screens, having percentages like this, they seem great in principle, but they're really arbitrary values because you never know how long your loading is actually going to take. Another thing that happens here too is because the loading is happening on my input, I'm thinking, hey, maybe I can actually change some of these input values while I'm waiting for that AI. Oh, I realized there was a typo. Oh, I realized I actually wanted to add in this additional parameter to my prompts, or I wanted to change the language that I selected. By considering having a separate loading screen with the option to cancel, so again, you're not wasting a user's time and also your own CPU resources, you're able to make sure that a user isn't trying to change something in the middle of the process and then seeing an unexpected result because you're not actually considering that. And then you're also removing those arbitrary loading percentage values that mean nothing to a user. Using a loading bar provides the same effect without providing the same expected result in the end. Our fourth tip is around user input. Anyone think where do I actually input my prompt here? Is it obvious where you would input your prompt? No. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking no. Yeah. From the look of this UI, it looks like any one of those 3 or 4 text boxes are places that I could type text, which is really confusing if you're actually trying to get a good prompt from a user. If you want to provide some idea prompts for users, this is probably not the way to do it because it's really confusing from a UI perspective. If I'm looking at this of what does this actually mean? What do I have selected? Can I change that text? Can I interact with it? So what we recommend is having a single text box and then with some clickable buttons or elements where you can actually then preload that into that text input field. And this creates a much cleaner experience where it's very obvious that these are suggestions and not editable text fields. Another thing that we're going to note around selection here is we've also moved from a dropdown for voice selection to some pre-selected options. When you have a lot of choice is actually the enemy of things getting done, right? So by limiting that selection to the top 3 or the top few items for users, it's going to significantly make it easier for them to make a choice and actually get to the end result, which is the value add of your product. In this case, this is a voice over or voice character AI. So it generates these AI avatars that have voices. We want them to actually see that and see the magic and the value of it. So instead of them spending a few minutes or a few seconds and trying to figure out what voice they want to select and then maybe even getting lost in the process and not actually seeing the value of your product, limiting that selection is going to make it a lot easier for them to actually get to an end product. Along those lines too, how many people love this dropdown? This just gives you the warm and fuzzies. One person, okay. So one person out of 100 plus. Yeah, this is not a great option for dropdowns. We don't want these extremely lengthy lists when we're searching when we're searching for things or using dropdowns. So instead, navigating to a search that you can also filter by languages or locales or male or female voice, those options that a user really wants to drill down into because they probably know what language they would like to select, and then they can focus in on those choices. So thinking about the user intent and how to simplify the experience is going to make it more likely that they get to that end result of actually playing with your UI and then purchasing your product. Tip 6. So in here we have another screen from one of our apps. Anyone can see what's wrong here? Right off the bat, no? So I want to draw your attention to there are 2 purple buttons. That means there are 2 primary actions. What is a user supposed to do on this screen? We have not told them. We have given them confusing options. Should they add the image or should they start over? It's always important to focus on having one primary action and everything else is a secondary action. What is the action that you want them to take on that page and highlight only that one? If you have multiple options to add or to multiple primary actions in your UI, your users are going to get lost and confused and not 100% sure what you want them to do at that stage. And my last tip before we actually try to implement all of these is on this page, anyone have any idea what you can do here? No, I didn't either when I saw this. So this is supposed to be a caption generation app. So what it does is you upload an image and it returns what it determines is in that image. So in this case, it's an eye. But how do I know that that's what we can use it for? So you really want to focus on what is the user intent. The point of this app was to generate a caption. In this option, I didn't show the original image, but I had a cartoon image of a cat. The image provides us with the clear indication that the user intent here is we generated you a caption. Do you want to add that caption to your design? So this would be great from an accessibility point of view. So making it extremely clear what the user's intent or follow-up action once your AI has produced a result is going to make it significantly easier for users to use and adopt your application as well. All of these apps are actual befores and afters of developers, AI developers who have gone through our app building process and gotten feedback from Canva and our team on how their app works, their UI and UX from our years of experience building it. And they've all seen great improvements in app adoption by following these new guidelines that we presented them to help them build better apps. Some of these are like really obvious cases of what is a better experience for users, and some of them are a little bit more subtle. So it's just things to think about and some UI experiences that you can incorporate into your own apps moving forward as well. Now, with that all in mind, I'm going to bring us to our fictitious startup, where we have an AI app that generates sci-fi scenes, and we've got to make some tweaks to our app in order to get it live and have users happy and excited to use it. So let's go ahead and try to apply some of this knowledge that we just learned. So meet our fake text-to-image AI app. Let's also keep our fingers crossed that my Hugging Face inference is not down, because that's been happening all day today. So fingers crossed on that one. So a couple things that we're going to think about when we're looking at our app right off the bat is we have a text input field. Do we want to maybe give some users some indications or some examples of what we could put there? We have a button. How do we prevent button smashing? That's just going to like ram up your CPU usage, and you don't want that. You don't want to be running multiple instances of the same prompt on your models. So how do we make sure that users know that your model is actually running, thinking, and trying to produce a result? And should that button always be enabled? And then how do we hide the no image, making sure that it shows an image when we actually have one? And what about how do we handle errors here as well? So let's go ahead and try to make a bunch of these changes in our app. So I'm going to switch over. So I have my app code here. And then what I do with Canva is I'm going to go ahead and bring up my terminal. This isn't like that important, but basically I have the app actually running here. So you just run npm start from our starter kit here. And this actually runs our source code for our app. Over in our Canva developer portal, you'll find your apps. Here you can easily create a new app. I've already created one for us today. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. And then with my app running on my local host, so I'm just going to go ahead and put the URL of where my local development environment is running. And then I can actually preview my application in a development state in the production version of the Canva editor. So here I have my app running on our side panel. Again, when we're talking about the Canva app experience, we are limited to this side panel right now. So we do have to consider that when we're designing our UI, but we're able to add things like text inputs and then generating images to then display on our page. So if we go ahead and try to use this app right now, it should actually just throw errors because I didn't give it a prompt. But let's go ahead and say city on the moon. So I'm going to give it a prompt of city on the moon. We're going to try to generate image. I have no idea what's going on right now. Is this a great user experience? No, it's not. Because this is when I would just go smash, 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 and run up your CPU usage. Do you want me to do that as a user? Probably not. So we're going to go ahead and trying to make some of those edits to our application. So one of the first things that we'll do here is I'm going to switch back over to my code editor. So the first thing I want to do here is for our text input. So I'm using some of our React components that are available through our Canva app API kit, app UI kit. And this actually comes with a lot of preset values that are properties that we can actually just utilize so we don't have to develop them out of the box, and they will be responsive to screen size. So if I go back over to our storybook, and let's go ahead and look at text input. Actually, let me zoom in on this one. Yeah. So in text input, we actually have a placeholder value. So we can easily add placeholders to our UI elements here. So let's go ahead and add a placeholder. And we'll set it equal to, I believe it's our text input value. Yeah. And so that way, when I go back over into my app, and I believe my hot module loading, yes. So we're able to see our preview text here. So if I scroll up to our text input value, I have it set as a state of astronaut riding a horse in space. So now we have some sample text. So also if a user was to just hit that button right off the bat, we're not sending a blank prompt, we're actually sending some text. So they can actually expect a result back and it won't error out immediately. The other thing we're going to want to do is when a user hits that button, we're probably going to want to set a state. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and create a state. So we'll go ahead and create a type of state, which will be equal to, so we'll have like an idle state. I'm a developer, not an English major, so excuse my typing. We'll have a success state. We'll have an error state. And of course, we need a loading state. With this, we can then also create a new state here as well. So this will be our loading state. And then we'll set loading state. And this will be equal to, and this will be of type state. And we'll start this off in idle. So now once our state is set to idle, we can go ahead and actually go to where our button on click event is. So again, we have our button, we have an on click event, and we're going to go look at that on click event. So on our button click, we're going to go ahead and set the loading state to loading. And then what this will allow us to do is if we go switch back over here to our storybook, in our buttons that we provide in our app UI kit, we actually have the opportunity to use a loading indicator right on the button. So this will make it really easy to disable that button and put it in a loading state so a user knows that there is some activity happening on the back end. So I'm going to go back to my button. I'm going to go ahead and add a new property. So if loading is true, so we want to check if loading state is equal to loading. And if that's true, then we want to go ahead and put that loading indicator on our button. But this also means at some point we need to tell the button that we're done and we can switch out of the loading state on the button. So once we actually get a result, we can go ahead and set the state to success. Now, if I go ahead and save my changes, go back over to my app. So if I go ahead and let's go city on the moon as my prompt, I'm now able to see a loading state on the button. So I know that it's thinking, and I'm not going to keep hitting that button because I don't think anything is happening. It's very clear to me that something is happening. Now, for this example, just to keep it really simple, I did that on the button, but for longer loading states, you'll actually want to probably put in a loading page and then have a result page in the end. But just for demo purposes, I want to show you guys how easy it is to integrate that loading state into your UI experience using our UI kit. Now we actually have an image here, but what do I do with this image? Can I drag it onto my page? Doesn't look like it. If I click it, will it add it? So that works. But we want to also make sure that the UI experience is consistent. If I go to any other Canva element, I'm able to drag those onto the page. So I want to make sure that that UI experience is consistent with our editor experience. So let's go ahead and make our image draggable as well. And an easy way to do this is if we go back to image cards, we actually have an on drag start. So you're actually able to initiate that drag event right from the Canva edit or from the element. So on drag start, and then go ahead and say on image drag. And I am feeling lazy and we're short on time, so I'm going to go ahead and steal. So in this drag event, we're going to utilize our Canva Apps SDK UI API, And this includes a start drag event, which allows us to tell it what type of dragging or what type of draggable element we are creating. So we're creating a draggable image. We want the preview size to be 100 by 100 pixels. The full size of the image is 240 by 240 pixels. And we're just going to use the sample URL, which is the data URL returned from our model to actually create that element to drag it onto the page. So if I go ahead and save this, go back to our app. Oopsies. So anyone have a futuristic sci-fi scene they want me to create? No? Okay, cool. Red moon over a blue city. The model is thinking. Very cool. So now if I drag this, I'm able to drag and drop it onto my page. So it's really easy to create draggable elements for the design as well. Now, what about an error state? What if, for instance, when I was building this demo, the Hugging Face inference models went down multiple times. So we're getting a bunch of 503 errors, and we want to make sure that as a user, you're aware that there was an issue and you want to try again. So let's go back to our query. We're going to go ahead and see if our response has an error. And if it does, we want to go ahead and set our loading state to error. Otherwise, we can go ahead and keep this same functionality. Now, what do we do with this loading state of error? Well, one thing we can do is show an error message. And it's really easy to do that because we have alerts as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and use an alert. I'm going to go ahead and set the tone to warn, because we don't want it to be like too aggressive. Like critical is like a critical system failure versus a warning is like, hey, like something went wrong, just to give you a heads up. And then I think that was what we want to do. And then we'll just say, there was an error. Please try again later. Oh, wait, but we don't want that showing all the time, right? So we're going to actually go ahead and check. We want loading state equal to error. And then we show our. See, we can see if, actually, let's try a farm on Mars. See what it gets. We'll see if we can get it to error out. We might not be able to. No. Ooh, that's kind of fun. It kind of looks like Farmville. So we didn't get an error state, but this time we're not seeing that error. So that's a positive. So we were able to use a simple combination of just React development skills that you probably already have in combination with the app UI kit and our app SDK to create a really easy way to integrate your AI into a Canva UI. And with that, I'm realizing we only have 5 minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back over here and just, we have a bunch of resources. So we have our apps SDK with a bunch of packet or APIs that are available, such as our assets, design, and platform and user APIs that allow you to upload media, add elements to the design, add external links, and also securely access your own backend. I also showed you a little bit about our app UI kit that has over 30 plus React components designed to make it really easy to create responsive and clean UI. And this list continues to grow. It's also available via NPM. Caveat, it's only available to use on your Canva apps. You cannot use this, sorry, for your external apps. We also have a bunch of guides from, again, our years of experience building UX for users and growing our user base. So if you have any questions about fundamentals of design or fundamental design patterns to incorporate in your app, we've got a lot of great guides there. And our app review process, so you submit your app, it goes through a very thorough functional and code review, as well as a UI and UX review. From there, you get a bunch of feedback, which is where a lot of these developers were able to take their UIs from the first page to the second. And we'll give you a lot of our insider tips on how to create a better UX. And then you're going to go make those changes, resubmit your app, and hopefully launch to our 170 plus million users. So thank you all. I'll open it up for questions. And if you want to learn more, you can find more at canva.dev or join our community at community.canva.dev. Yeah, so you can also programmatically add elements to the page. So one of the other things that I didn't focus on too much here is this add native elements API or method available from our design API. Allows you to automatically add those elements to the page. So in this case, I was letting the user decide if they wanted to add it or not, but you can programmatically add it as well. And we also recently allow you to be aware of what a user has selected on the page and be able to update and replace it as well, because we know that's a really common use case for a lot of AI as well. So we currently monetize entirely off platform. So it's up to you how you want to monetize. A lot of our developers choose to do a credits model or a subscription model. So you would have them sign up on your account, but we do enable you to initiate that payment flow from our side, but we don't touch it because we don't want to take money from you. That is entirely your thing. We also do have awards based off of usage. So as your app grows with our audience, you will also receive monetary prizes as well. But yeah, if you want to do monetization, it's entirely up to you how you want to do your monetization strategy. It's all designed to work with TypeScript. So it's not required. We've had other developers try to also use Angular instead of React. So you are able to use whatever preferred front-end language that you are comfortable working with, but all of our resources and guides are designed for React and TypeScript. No, so currently all the app is running in that side panel. So that's the only current real estate, but stay tuned. We have some exciting things coming in the next couple months. Yeah, we are relatively early. We just went to GA back in June of last year. So we're continuing to constantly add new features and capabilities to our SDK. So there's some really exciting things coming down the pipeline this year. So I'm really excited to share, maybe come back and share more of that later. Thank you.